didn't want to talk too much today, but I noticed after doing my videos last night that the stabilizer must not have been on the highest setting because it was a little jittery and shaky. Admittedly, at some point I extended the you know, this rod or whatever it is that you put the camera on so that it would be up higher to avoid all the shadows created by the street lights. So anyway, but what I thought about after watching this, you know, horrific thing yesterday, and hearing different, you know, people of authority in charge speaking about the incident, I noticed the one guy who was mainly in charge per se. There are two people, one from GBI, and I, you know, in all my experience, I did not know each state had, like, not every state has it. They might call it something different. In Pennsylvania, they call it something different, but GBI being Georgia Bureau of Investigations is supposedly FBI. And I was like, what would Florida do? Like, would they, Florida Bureau of Investigations was, they would have to maybe say Special Investigations, which is what Pennsylvania says. But anyway, the guy mostly in charge, hi, it's like Jimmy Carter look-alike family. So, and Georgia, and that's where Jimmy Carter is. I have kind of family. I don't talk to them really. I didn't grow up with them, but in Cartersville. But anyway, the guy mostly in charge, the baldish one, a big tall guy, empowering or whatever. He seemed, you know, liberal-ish. He chose to use the word evil, and I think he was doing it from a liberal standpoint. So hear me out on this one. If you think about a 14-year-old boy, you know, how many of us had brains at the age of 14? Okay, and I know when you're 14 you think I was dissociated as a kid, so, you know, and I know people think they know everything and blah blah blah. No offense to people who are. It's more like brains are developing, kids are growing. Technically we're not adults until we're 18. Most people I know aren't even adults. I'm kidding. But it takes a long time for people to sort of grow, evolve. People go off in different directions. People have, you know, sort of form their lives based on, you know, how they're raised and which directions do people go in, what kind of education, what kind of training, specialties. So 14 is very young. Because of what I experienced, I know that someone could trigger, they can press a button. It's in that realm. They would like invisibly press a button in their mind. There are people, and they're using their powers incorrectly. They can take over another person. I am not standing up, you know, I'm just saying, how easy are kids to take over for the people who puppeted this person? And I know people say the parents are to blame, you know, there are guns in the house, they are accessible, there's a whole package going on, but someone out there with the utmost power knew who these people were, and they chose to take over. From what I understand, this person was sort of known and flagged already. And what did they waited, or did they cause? And dare I say this? Did someone cause this to happen? And they're like, well, we'll just take down this family because it's easier. They are perceived a certain way because of either beliefs or what have you. You know, there are people in high positions who are even taken over, if you will. We all wonder, how is it that someone can talk that quickly and so perfectly? Now, you can have all the education in the world, say like on a newscast. You can have all the education you want to have. In the end, you can take what you've learned, and there is some aid out there, or as the more crass of us would say, a feeding tube. Even the smartest people have the hardest time being perfectly verbal and verbalizing everything perfectly. Say like on a newscast under all that pressure, particularly say like yesterday, a lot of emotions are on high. You have a couple people who appeared on the scene and they are quickly able to bring their tears under control. That is hard to do. Once you start crying, it's all get out, So, so I would argue that people who started to tear up while broadcasting, they have quote unquote good people in there to hurry up and fix it and get on with the reporting. Okay, so, but it's in the same vein. So I'm afraid to take a stance because, I'm afraid of anything. I'm afraid of guns. I'm afraid of knives. I have all plastic utensils except for one paring knife to cut fruit. And I do have one other knife that I found, which was in the bushes while I was walking dogs at Rittenhouse's years ago, at Sheffield. I had to go onto YouTube tutorials to figure out how to open it. That's how much I know about anything. So, and I use it for boxes and stuff like that, like to break down boxes, and that's it. I don't even have a pair of scissors except for nail scissors to cut my fingernails, those little curved things that you buy at CVS. So anyway, I'm not going to take a stance on whether the NRA and why people have guns, why they don't. I totally get it. There are people grow up in regions where it's heavily thought about of, could there be a takeover, and then what would you do, like if people try to take over your community, like in Tampa. I read something there are two things going on in recent news in Tampa. There was one of these street takeover activities where people do the wheelies and the donuts with their cars, but there were cars like coming up on people's lawns and hitting people's, cars and driveways of homes near Franklin and Channel side is what I gather from that. And this was in a riverside community or something like that. And it was pretty, threatening, considering like how far people are willing to go to sort of take over the streets, if you will. So that happened recently. And then there's the idea of like in Colorado, I guess, Aurora, there's this idea of, Venezuelan, gangsters taking over an apartment complex. Oh, look at this guy. He looks like a southern, you can barely see him all. There's little southern like Democratic lawyers. Some sort of dog from the movies was in there, brown dog. I don't know the breed. I don't even know what that breed is. He's in the hunter group, I'm sure. Big flop ears. He would look like a lab, but he's not. He's in the realm of some sort of lab meets hound dog meets something. So anyway, and like the same color brown as like a Vizsla, but much bigger. So but I thought it was interesting this gentleman used the word evil. I noticed in another broadcast that he was rocking back and forth on his feet, and it came to me, oh look, there's Verizon Fios at Waverly. He was waving back and forth on his feet. See how that changed? And I use that word on purpose.